Good morning. This is Jamie from Stonemeyer Games. It is what it is Wednesday, May the 5th today, one day after May the 4th. I hope you had a good Star Wars themed day yesterday. And thank you for joining me today. Today is, as usual, our special live cast because we released our monthly e-newsletter just a few minutes ago. If you don't get the e-newsletter, if you want to get it, you can go to the Stonemeyer Games webpage and go to news, and you can find it there. But I've also included a link directly to the e-newsletter, the web version of it, in the description of this video in case you want to just check that out. It might be a little bit easier for you to just click on that to see what topics. I have it up on my other screen here, so I might be looking at it a little bit over the course of this live cast as I discuss some of the topics on that newsletter. But I also have some just random topics. And let me start out, as I see people join us, let me start out with the chocolate of the day. And one thing I'll be talking about a little bit in today's live cast is that this past weekend, I went back to Virginia, where I'm from, and where my parents and my brother and my sister still live. And for reasons that I'll mention in a minute. But while we were there, I had my favorite ice cream in the world every day that I was there. I was there for 3 days. It's called Gelati Celeste. It's a type of ice cream found in Richmond, Virginia, and Chesterfield, surrounding areas of Richmond. And I just love it. And they have one flavor called Chocolate Decadence that I always get, in addition to some other flavors that I try. But even as I'm trying other flavors, I always get Chocolate Decadence. So even though I'm not eating that today, that is definitely the chocolate that I'm thinking about today because I love it so much. So that'll be my chocolate of the day. And I'm wondering if any of you have ever heard of this place, Gelati Celeste in Richmond, Virginia. Maybe they've spread outside of Richmond at this point, but it is so good. So good. Not just delicious in terms of flavor, but the consistency is just exactly what I want out of ice cream. So that's Gelati Celeste, my chocolate of the day. What are you indulging in today? Let me see if I have any comments. Oh, yeah. Good morning, Keith, Cynthia, Frank, Cody. I won't say everyone's name, but thank you for joining me today. I really appreciate that. And what else is going on today? Okay, so I guess the big news is it's our monthly e-newsletter, and the big announcement this month is that I have announced the new expansion, or the only expansion, the first and only expansion to Between Two Castles, A Mad King Ludwig, the Secrets and Soirees expansion. I haven't revealed exactly what's in the expansion yet, but I'll read what I wrote in the e-newsletter because I do reveal some stuff, and then I'll go into detail about that stuff over the next week. So I say, the new Secrets and Soirees expansion to Between Two Castles and Mad King Ludwig expands the game up to 8 players. So you can see that on the box. It goes up to 8 players now. And you can see that one player, I'll get to that in a second, expands the game up to 8 players with 2 new room types, activity and secret rooms, a new specialty room type, ballrooms, more bonus cards, and a new throne room. It also now includes full Altama solo player components and rules. And thanks to the expansion's special game trays, everything fits into the original game box. I look forward to showing you that tray and how it fits, but if you actually look at your copy of Between Two Castles, you can probably see how the tray is going to fit in the box because we left enough room for a tray to fit in the box. And then we designed around that room, basically, so it would all fit into the core game box. But yeah, I would say probably the most exciting thing for maybe a lot of you about this expansion is that finally you can play Between Two Castles solo, which is something that we do out of the box for all of our games now. But that hasn't always been the case. It wasn't the case for Euphoria out of the box, and it wasn't the case for Between Two Castles out of the box. And so we are adding to that, in some ways fixing it, because I think solo modes are really important with this expansion. I'm not going to spoil anything today about the expansion, but I have actually, what I just said is a lot of information about what the expansion contains, and so while I won't go into details about those things, if you do have any general questions, I might answer them. So feel free to ask questions about the expansion if you want, and I will feel free to also follow along on our website, on the Design Diary page of the expansion on our website, or in the Between Two Castles Facebook group where I'll be talking about it in the coming weeks. Let's see, Tommy, you have a very specific question about Red Rising. 2 questions. Those are great questions, but I'd recommend just going to the Red Rising Facebook group and posting them there. Off the cuff, I want to make sure I give you the exact right answer, and while I'm live, it's a little difficult to do that, especially with the cards not in front of me. So post that excellent question, or excellent 2 questions in the Red Rising Facebook group, and they'll help you there. Dave says, what's my favorite bird card in Wingspan? I'm a fan of the bird, the peregrine falcon, and so that is my favorite bird card. I always go after that if I see it show up in the game. I believe it's a predator in the game itself. Arthur has a very nice question, which is a topic that I wanted to mention briefly too. Arthur says, "How's my dad doing?" So my dad is the reason I went back to Virginia. My dad had surgery a few weeks ago. I don't know if you follow these live casts. I'll summarize it real briefly. But dad had surgery a few weeks ago, cancer-related surgery. Surgery went really well, but the recovery went really poorly. Basically, his intestinal system just shut down after the surgery. It didn't want to operate. And so that put him in and out of the hospital. My dad is usually very healthy. And so this was very abnormal and tough to see him so frail and so weak. And finally, he stayed out of the hospital for about a week. And I decided to go home. And so Megan and I drove to Virginia from St. Louis in my Tesla, which was a huge help because the Tesla can steer itself on the roads, and it's a 15-hour car ride, and so it's a long time to be behind the wheel. So we drove to Virginia last Thursday, drove back to St. Louis on Monday, and so we were there for 3 full days for me to just hang out with my dad really, and my mom and my nieces and nephews, brother and sister. It was a great family gathering, but the focus was on my dad. And Arthur, to answer your question, he's still frail. But he seemed pretty normal, just a lot lighter. He lost a lot of weight as the result of this, and he's trying to gain back that weight and gain the proper nutrients that his body is having a little hard time accepting right now. Maybe a little is downplaying it. His intestines still don't really want to digest food. And so he is working on triggering and activating that system again so that he can get all the nutrients that his body needs. So it was great to spend quality time with him. He's thin, he's frail, but he's getting there, and he is a real trooper in terms of the way he lives his life. So I'm proud of how he's handling it, and I look forward to him getting all of his strength and his energy back in the near future. And it was good to see him. It was really good to see him. Yeah, I'm trying to think if there's anything else. Yeah, I do have actually some things that happened on this trip. I'll jump back to those in a second because I do see a few questions. So let me go there first. I'll come back to this trip. Jeremiah says, do I get statistics? Do I have statistics for my replacement parts program? And if so, what game gets the most pieces replaced, or what piece gets most replaced? We used to do it using a Google Doc. So basically, if you have one of our games and you have a piece that's missing or broken, whether it's out of the box missing or broken, or if you break it, if your dog eats it, you can go to our website and request a replacement, and we'll take care of that for you for the piece. The one thing that we can't replace is the box itself, because the boxes for our games have games inside of them, and so we can't. We are essentially sending you a full game if we are going to send you a box. But yeah, we can replace any other piece other than the box. And we used to use a Google form and a Google spreadsheet. It was much easier to see that, Jeremiah, see that data. Now we use a more robust platform for customer service called Jira, Jira. And I don't have those stats as handy as they once were. They actually might be easier to see on Jira, but every request is written out. So it's not like someone might write a paragraph about the piece they're missing. Someone else might just say yolk from Viticulture or blue yolk, So I don't have that data. I don't know, but we do we keep an eye on patterns anecdotally. So if we see any patterns of certain types of pieces being missed consistently, or maybe they're consistently broken or consistently missing, then we talk to our printer about it. And that's happened a few times over the years. Like I think one of the early versions of the windmill in Viticulture broke really easily. I think it was Viticulture, maybe it was Scythe. And so we made it stronger. We changed the configuration for that piece. So if we see patterns, we fix them. Yeah. Dave says, I know you've said you won't do it, but any chance we can get a mini pack of new birds with the big box? No. And the reason I don't want to do that, Dave, I appreciate people wanting content in the box. I know it's weird to buy a big box. The context for this is that we are working on a big box for Wingspan that is just a box and an organizer, no gameplay content. The reason so it's weird to buy this thing that has no game inside of it. You need to buy the game separately to put it into this box. I know that's weird, but the reason I don't want to put any gameplay content in it is that there will definitely be people, quite a few people, who just want that gameplay content and not the box, which means that instead of just making one SKU, we have to make that promo pack or mini pack of new birds, like you said. We have to make it separately too. We have to make and sell it separately. So we might as well just make and sell it separately if we're going to do that, rather than putting it in the box. The only thing I would say is if the big box happened to coincide with the release of an expansion, we might include that in the box and also sell that expansion separately, so that, I don't know, just to make it easier for people to buy. But that's not happening. That we're not in line for that right now. I'll answer a few more questions, then I'll jump back over to some of my random topics here. Alex says, are the new tiles and bonus cards, he's talking about Between Two Castles expansion, are the new tiles and bonus cards language independent like in the base game? New tiles, they are, yeah. The focus, our focus is never on language independence, because our focus is on clarity, but I believe I have the real components over here off to the right. Let me see if anything is, yeah, everything's language independent in this game. I mean, not like the rules in the reference guide and the score pad, but well, actually, the score pad is essentially language independent. But yeah, like in the core game, everything is still language independent. Peter says, how many quarantine-related games do you think will be seen in the future? I don't know if well, I don't know. Maybe you have an example of Peter. I'm not aware of any quarantine themed games, but I do think we'll see more games that that are designed for two players only, for solo players, for remote play. Yeah, things like that. I think we'll see a lot more of that. Just because that's how people are limited by design these days, to a certain extent, unless you want to use Tabletopia, Tabletop Simulator to test your game. Zach says, if the secret rooms are truly secret, how are we going to know how they're going to be scored? They're not truly secret, but that is a fun question there, Zach. Okay, I'll jump back to Virginia as a topic real quick. So I was in Virginia with my family this past few days over the weekend, and like I said, we ate a lot of Gelati Celeste ice cream, a lot of just quality time with the family. We played a little bit of disc golf in Virginia at a place called Bryan Park, and we ate a lot of good food together, which was fun, but also a little tough because my dad couldn't eat most of that good food because of his surgery recovery. And we played a few games too. I played Mysterium Park. I taught and played Red Rising, of course, and I brought my copy of Canvas and played that. I think Canvas and Mysterium Park are really good gateway level games to share with people. And my family, there are many different varying degrees of gamers, but with little kids running around, I think it becomes more difficult for like my mom can play Viticulture, and that's probably the heaviest game she can play, and then there's a range of lower games she can play. But when you have like 5 little kids running around, someone who can normally play Viticulture maybe a little harder to do that. So I like bringing some kind of lighter games, easier, more accessible games when I go to these family gatherings. But we had a lot of fun doing that. Oh yeah, I had fun. Well, I have a few other trip things, but I wanted to mention something to you that came to me while I was in the car. I asked Megan if she would ever want to join me for one of these live casts for a few minutes to answer some of your questions. And she said she is open to the idea. This isn't her forte. I don't think she gets excited about doing this kind of thing. But if you have any questions for Megan that you would have fun answering, she asked if you could ask them in advance. And so today, I'm going to keep track of the comments over here. Keep an eye on the comments. If you have any questions for Megan, my girlfriend, she is a gamer. She loves World of Warcraft and Star Wars. She's very much a nerd. If you have any questions for her, ask them in the comments here, and I will take note of them. And then maybe on an upcoming live cast, she will join us for a few minutes and answer those questions. Not live questions, but questions that you have asked today in the comments. So feel free to do that if you are so inclined. Denny says, have I checked out Oath, Chronicles of Empire, and Exile from Later Games? The Chronicle system seems very intriguing. I have read up about it a little bit. I've watched, I think, a few videos about it. I still don't quite understand completely how it works, but it looks interesting. And so, yeah, I'm continuing to be curious about it because it looks pretty cool. A pretty interesting system. George has a nice comment about the expansion boxes for our games. Robert says, a fellow disc golfer here. Not a board game question, but are you familiar with the Disc Golf Valley app? It simulates the physics of disc golf really well and has some fun courses to play. I haven't played that. No, I thought maybe at first you were talking about an app to like track your disc or track the courses that you played. But no, this is different. You're talking about an actual, like a simulation style game. And no, I haven't heard of that, but thank you for the recommendation. Laura says, oh, Escape Room Girl here. She says, were you able to pick up monochrome ink? I put it on my wish list. I haven't ordered it yet, but I did put it on my wish list, Laura. I'm trying to get through a few other games before I get it, but it is on my wish list to buy. I'm very curious about it. Thank you for the recommendation. And she says, we finished last weekend. Fun game and other news. I finally won Red Rising. Congratulations on finally winning. Rasmus has a question about another expansion, but obviously today we are focusing on the Between Two Castles expansion. I'll read again the description for you in case you have any questions. Obviously, I'm going to go into details over the next week in Design Diary post, but the overarching idea behind the expansion is that it expands the game up to 8 players with 2 new room types, activity and secret rooms, a new specialty room type, ballrooms, more bonus cards, and a new throne room. It also now includes full Altama solo player components and rules. Thanks to the game's special game trays, everything fits into the original game box. So I'm excited to show all that stuff to you in the very near future. Oh, and I actually say in the e-newsletter that the pre-order for this expansion will be on May 26th. As usual, you'll have reviews to refer to before then. You'll have plenty of information. You'll have all the information that you need to make a decision about whether or not this expansion is for you. We will also offer the core game for order then too, to ship together with the expansion. And we'll be shipping in June. So the freight shipment has arrived, or the freight shipments have arrived in their respective countries, but they haven't arrived at the fulfillment centers yet. But they are roughly on track to do so in late May or early June. Tim says, Red Rising question. How do people keep getting more than 7 cards on a regular basis? I've only had 7 one time, usually 5 or 6. I know some of the cards let you gain more cards, but not too often for me. Am I doing something wrong? No, you're not doing anything wrong. There are just some cards, like you said, that let you gain more cards. And I think sometimes it depends on how a group operates with those cards. Sometimes those cards get deployed in a lot. And so someone might deploy it, gain the extra card, and someone else might pick it up and then deploy it again and get an extra card. And so I think when you see these bigger hands of cards, generally that means that most people at the table are having larger than average hands. Sometimes I think versus the Automa, I think it's a little bit easier because the Automa may not necessarily see those cards like human players can. And it is also possible that sometimes people are getting the rules wrong in terms of making their hands bigger. I haven't seen any consistent rules misplayed that to result in a larger hands, but it is possible. Kevin says he played disc golf for the first time since I was 12. I had a lot of fun, but was not very good. Do you get a running start or do you stand still and throw? I've heard when you're working on your form for disc golf that you should not do a running start. You should just stand still. But once you get that form down and a good snap of your wrist, good level arm, all that stuff, then you can start to get a little bit of running start on some longer drives. I do a longer start at that point. Doesn't mean I really have my form completely down yet, but I like the running start. But just for drives. Ryan says, do I have any recommendations for how to implement the expansion parts into Viticulture? How many is too much? Which ones are easier? That's a good question, right? So we have a couple of different expansions for Viticulture. More visitors is probably the easiest one. You can just shuffle all those cards into the card decks you already have. I'd recommend doing that. And then once you have that and Rhine Valley, you can either choose to play with those your original cards and more visitor cards, or the Rhine Valley cards. So choose one or the other, depending on your mood. And then we bring in Tuscany. So Tuscany has 3 levels to it. It has the board itself, the extended board. And that I generally play with unless I'm introducing the game to new players. I also generally play with structures. And then if I'm in the mood to go up 1 level, then I also play with special workers. But that's usually the order that I go in. I play core game with more visitors or without more visitors, or with Rhine Valley, with anyone. And then with more experienced people for Viticulture, I play with the extended board. And then if it's not their first time playing with the extended board, I'll play with structures. And then, and even sometimes I will do that because you can just ignore structures if you want. And then if we're in the mood for a really a meatier experience, the heaviest experience, we'll play with the special workers as well, the special worker meeples. That's my method. Tom has a nice note here, and he says, have you seen my father's work on Kickstarter? What are your thoughts on app-driven games? Would you consider it as a feature in a future Stonemaier game? You know, I'd seen that game a little bit, but I hadn't seen that there's an app involved, so I need to check that out. I'll make a note about that. My father's work. Um, yeah, so thank you for mentioning that. My overall stance on apps in games that rely on apps, is I think it's awesome when they're used in innovative ways, when they make the gameplay better, more balanced, more intuitive, more fun, when they do all that stuff. When an app enhances those elements, that's cool. I'm all for that. I've seen that done in the Lord of the Rings game, the Journeys in Middle Earth. I've seen it there. Mansions of Madness, Forgotten Waters, definitely seen it there. However, for Stonemaier Games, I have never seen a digital game, which is different than an app, but I've never seen a digital game be delivered anywhere even really close to the projected schedule. Nowhere close. And so I would never want to design a board game and have the board game portion of it ready, the printed portion ready, and then have to just wait an indeterminate amount of time until the app portion is ready as well. In fact, I kind of wonder if any of these games that have apps, if any of them have been ready on time, if the apps were ready based on the schedule that they anticipated. And so I love that some companies have figured this out, but I wouldn't want to make the schedule depend on it, given my experience with digital game development. And it's fine with digital game development. We invest very little in digital games. Most of it is the developers who invest their own investments and money into it. And so we're not really losing anything except for I get anxious. I want the game to be available for people. But given how few games we release every year, 1 or 2 games, if one of those games got delayed because the app wasn't ready on time, that would be a big deal. That would be a big deal for me. So, long answer short, I'm fine with apps coming after the game for our games, like scoring apps, the Red Rising scoring app. But for games that depend on apps, that isn't a strategy that we plan on pursuing. Okay, Arthur has a question for Megan here. I'll say it out loud, but Megan may answer it in the future. She says, has she ever fancied designing a game? If so, what style, name, or type? So would you ever design a game? Or have you ever wanted to? Tim has one. Who wins more often when you and Jamie play games? Who is better at which types of games? Who wins more? I could answer that, but I'll let Megan answer it. What types? Ryan says, what is our favorite place to eat in St. Louis? Favorite STL food? Justin says, us Yankee fans gave the Astros a good time last night. Baseball fan Justin here. Just need to check with you since I couldn't find this online. The Astros are on the Stonemaier ban list, correct? We don't really have a ban list, especially not for professional sports teams. But you are correct that I don't root for the Astros. I am a mild St. Louis Cardinals fan. But I definitely root against the Yankees, too. So, yeah, I appreciate that you are a fan, Justin, but I am definitely not a fan of the Yankees. Danny says, do you have any thoughts about Dizid? Dizid. I've never heard of that word before. Danny, can you tell me a little bit more about that? Looks like Beethoven is joining us from Indonesia for the first time. Thanks for dropping in, Beethoven. Let's see if you have a question here. He says, I have a question, though, about the price stated on the invoice that was included in your package since I got the champion discount. Is it okay for me to ask here, or do you prefer to shoot you an email? If you have a general question that people might be interested in, I'm happy to answer it. But if you have a question about your specific order, you should definitely contact us privately, not in a public forum like this. I'll try to answer what I think your question might be, which is what the listed price on the invoice should be, and it should include the champion discount. So if you bought Red Rising when it was, I don't know what it was, $55 and plus shipping, say the shipping was another $20, say it was $75, and then you got the 25% champion discount, then the listed price on the invoice should be the price that you paid, the total price you paid, which 25% of 75, what is that, around 60? So it should be around $60, given that hypothetical example. So that is the price that should have been listed on the invoice. If it isn't, let me know or let us know. Contact Joe at contact@stomeyergames.com, and Joe can put together a revised invoice showing the actual price that you paid. Although it should be available in your email too. You might use your email because the email confirmation you got for your order should show the actual price that you paid, and that should be the price that you show to customs in Indonesia. Sorry if you've had any problems with that, especially if they were caused by us. I apologize for that. Heather says, "Did you pull from the actual castle rooms that the original castles of Mad King Ludwig had? I know he was known for having some crazy rooms in his castles, or the actual King Ludwig. Some of them, yeah. We pulled from a variety of sources to come up with the names of the rooms in Between Two Castles, Secrets and Soirees. Some of them came from Palaces of Mad King Ludwig. Some of them came from Castles of Mad King Ludwig, or the expansions in that game. And some came from just fun stuff, and some came from actual castles as well. As usual, there are some Easter eggs, little winks, and things like that in the art and the names of the rooms." Jan Williams says, "With regards to the Wingspan Big Box, did you ever do research as to how many people would keep expansion boxes as opposed to people trying to get rid of them and trying to squeeze them in the base box?" I tend to keep expansion boxes. I haven't done that. I think I have to assume, though, that there's at least some people who haven't kept the expansion boxes, probably a decent number of them. And so I don't think I can design the big box around people having the expansion boxes. I'm glad you've kept them and maybe displayed them, but that's a good question. It's worth asking, at least, to find out, just out of curiosity. But no, I don't know, and I don't think we could make the Wingspan Big Box. Assuming people would put those boxes in there. The only anecdotal research I have is from the Scythe Legendary box, when people fairly clearly said that they wanted the box to be independent of the expansion boxes. Especially since not everyone even buys all the expansions for Wingspan or Scythe or our games. So, yeah. Tim taught his friend Red Rising last night, and he's a new gamer, but still enjoyed it. That's awesome, Tim. Thanks for sharing it. Lisa has a question for Megan. Have you ever experienced disbelief from other gamers because of being a female and a girlfriend of a prominent board game industry personality? In other words, do gamers believe that you are a true gamer? Very interesting question, Lisa. How do I phrase that in short? I like the way you phrase it at the end. Do gamers? It really doesn't even matter if someone believes you're a true gamer. Believe you're a, quote, true gamer. Yeah, great question. I like that. We actually talked about that a little bit in the car ride home from St. Louis. And actually, well, let me mention that, or home from Virginia. Mention that real quick before I forget. One of the main things that we did in this car ride, we sung some songs, we listened to music, but we also listened to podcasts, and we found one podcast that we really, really liked, and it's called How to Save a Planet. If you look up How to Save a Planet, I'm sure you'll see this podcast. It is really good. I would say even if you're mildly interested in climate change, the environment, ecology, even just a mild interest, I think would make this a really interesting podcast for you to listen to. We really enjoy it. We probably listened to at least 10 episodes during the 30 hours we spent in the car over the last week, and maybe even more. And just learned a lot, but it was also entertained. It was very entertaining, very engaging. The hosts are very likable, fun to listen to. We learned a lot about the world and climate and things that we can do, the things that maybe I can do as a company to improve some things. And I'll throw out one fun fact that I didn't know that it has made me really think quite a bit, which is that plastic bubble wrap, while there might be some recycling facilities in the world that can truly recycle plastic bubble wrap, they are very rare. Typically, it is not the norm for a facility to be able to recycle bubble wrap. And in addition to that, so if you get bubble wrap or you're using bubble wrap, it's probably not going to get recycled. Even if you try to recycle, it's not going to get recycled. And on top of that, if you do include it, say you get a box from wherever, from Stonemaier Games, you get a box from Stonemaier Games, a package, there's bubble wrap in it, and you take out the game, you stuff that bubble wrap back in the box, and you throw it in the recycling bin. feels good, feels normal to do that, right? You're recycling all the stuff. You're keeping all the stuff that's not disposable. However, apparently that bubble wrap can gum up the recycling machines just by you including it, just by you trying to do something good, as I have done many times myself with bubble wrap. It can actually gum up the machines and make the cardboard harder to recycle because you put bubble wrap in that box. So don't recycle bubble wrap unless your facility can definitely handle it. So check that out. But I didn't know any of that. I was kind of hopeful that bubble wrap would be recycled, and at the very worst, I thought, okay, they'll just remove it. But it could actually make the situation worse if it goes through these machines that process the cardboard. So that's one thing I learned about, among many other things I learned on this podcast, how to save a planet. Steven says, late to the party, he's talking about the Between Two Castles expansion. He says, is the Automa only for solo mode, or can my wife and I add it for a more realistic 3-player game? Let's see. I think it is just... So I'm not the solitaire specialist in our company. That's Morten Monrad Peterson. Let me see if he can play with, if it can be played with other players. Usually the answer is yes, but with a variant. I don't see it right off the top of my head. Let's see if it can do it. Okay, it says, when using the Automa system, the game plays as a 3-player game with your artificial opponents taking the place of 2 human players. So, I don't know if that really answers your question. But, so I don't know. But Morten, I think, will answer that in an upcoming Design Diary post. And if anything, there will be a fairly easy variant to implement for to play with against a third Automa player. Yeah, we'll find out the real answer. Don't take my answer for it, but we'll find out the real answer soon. Denny asked, is she Alliance or Horde? This is a World of Warcraft question. Alliance or Horde? I think she was Alliance, but we'll find out. Arthur says, does Stonemaier Games still consider doing Kickstarter campaigns, maybe in a different format wherein the game would be fulfilled quicker than average given the policy you have been following? The thing is, Arthur, I don't think it's possible to do both. So one of the big reasons that I have not ever gone back to Kickstarter since 2015 is I love being able to just make something that I believe is awesome, share it with you, like this expansion, having already made it, and then letting you be able to pre-order it and then ship it a few weeks later. So between the announcement and when you get it is just over a month. Between the time that you buy it and when you get it is usually just a few weeks. That gap is just, to me, infinitely more appealing and more marketable than a Kickstarter campaign. And so you're proposing a format where the game will be fulfilled quicker, but if you don't know, well, if you don't know the final stuff that's going to go into the game, even if you have like 99% of your knowledge, I wouldn't run a Kickstarter campaign if I knew everything that was going to be in the game and it wasn't going to have any sort of stretch goal or participation in the community building. That's the whole point of doing a Kickstarter campaign, to have that creative engagement. If you take that out, you might as well just make the product in advance. And so I would want to have at least a little bit of that as part of the project. And that means you can't start production until after the project. That's what we did with Scythe. I mean, we had everything ready. But we had some collaborations, and we went to print about a month after the Kickstarter ended, maybe even closer to that than that. And then you still have a 3 to 4 month production gap, and then another month or 2 for freight shipping. And so that gap between when people give me money for Kickstarter and when they get the game, at best is 6 months. And usually it's probably going to be 7 or 8 months. Opposed to our format right now, which is weeks. When you pay for this expansion, you'll get it a few weeks later. And so you get to get excited about it when you pre-order it, and that excitement hasn't gone away by the time you get it, opposed to a Kickstarter when the peak of the excitement is when you actually back the campaign. I don't know, just so many reasons. I appreciate Kickstarters. I back them. I do get excited about them. But I don't know. It's really hard for me to go back after embracing and learning from and pivoting within our current format. We've learned a lot. I've learned a lot about the format that we now use over doing it many, many times. And we've kind of trained people or taught people that the way to get Stonemaier games, if you're an early adopter, is to use this method. And so to change to something else, to Kickstarter, to GameFound is fascinating to me, would be big divergence from what we've taught people our method is and the way that we want to treat our customers. So I don't know. Great question, totally valid question. Something I do think about, but I always come back to that answer. Alex says, maybe a spoiler you won't reveal yet. Which castle is the new miniature based on? Yeah, we do have a new castle token in the box. Let me see if I can recall offhand what castle it's based on. Probably look it up. Oh no, I looked wrong rulebook. Let's see. It is Wartburg Castle. There's a Wartburg Castle token. Alex here from Board Game Co. gives a good example of in Red Rising how one player getting more cards can actually result in all players getting more cards. He says, we had a card that gained you a card and then you passed it to another player. That game we had 8 cards and 10 cards respectively. Yeah, totally. So that's a great example. I don't think there are a ton of cards like that, but that is definitely one where if you're gaining a card and then passing it, then all players are getting bigger hands in that game. Jan Williams says the art of Between Two Castles expansion looks amazing. Thank you. We used the same artist as the core game for the box, and then Laura and Inez did the interior art. Yeah, so they are. Yeah, they are. I'm glad you like it. Yeah, I think they did a fantastic job with it. Yeah. Let's see. Raphael says, since I have a note there that I thought of while I was talking. Raphael says, since you're a St. Louis guy, has a St. Louis themed game idea come up yet? Say something based on the City Museum, his favorite museum of all time. The City Museum is a lot of fun. It's like an adult playground, kind of, is one way to say it. And it is really, really cool. But no, I haven't had any St. Louis specific ideas come up. We do hint at St. Louis in many of our games using the Arch, the area code 314, but I haven't thought of a theme for St. Louis specifically yet that I would put into a game. Cody says, could you choose to ignore that the area control portion of Tuscany, or would it throw off the balance too much? It is fine to ignore it. I like it. I like the type of interaction it adds to the game. But if you don't find it fun, you can totally remove it. We actually, I think, say in the rulebook now that for 2-player games, you can remove that if you want, if you don't enjoy that area control portion. Because I think some people had told me that in 2-player games they didn't really enjoy it. Robert says, do I enjoy negotiation games? And have you played Sidereal Confluence? I have played it twice, really, really enjoyed it. Brilliant game. And also, it reminded me a lot of A Trade on the Tigris, which I also really enjoyed. I would say I do enjoy negotiation games. Not just that style of game, but there are many negotiation games that I do enjoy. Negotiation games is a hard word to say repeatedly. Yeah. Heather is here. It looks like she's sharing her Instagram name, Board Gaming Mama. She says, our son is turning 8 in June and is becoming more and more interested in tabletop gaming. We're starting to add more games he can play to our collection. Do you think he could handle My Little Scythe? 8 is I think the age where we start recommending players, kids and families trying My Little Scythe. So I've heard great things about it being a good fit for that age group. My niece, who just turned 8, has played it and has had fun with it. So yeah, I think, especially if you are comfortable with it, the mechanisms are not particularly complicated, and while there is a little bit of hidden information, you don't really need to play with it the first time you play. The hidden information is just the pie fight cards, which are just numbers. So if your son can count up to 5, that can be really helpful. But the game is designed to really start engaging people when they turn 8. So I think that should work. Ivan says, here's an interesting game called Encore. Have I checked it out? It's from the same publisher of Splendor. I have not actually heard of Encore. Encore is the spelling A-N-K-H apostrophe O-R, like maybe an Egyptian theme here. David says, what is the most love you have ever been in the caves of the St. Louis City Museum? What is the most lost? I just don't know why I saw love there. Most lost. So there is an artificial cave system in the St. Louis City Museum that is part of the playground format of it. And I have very fond memories not of getting lost there. You can get a little bit lost, but you can always hear people around you, find your way back. But I have very fond memories of playing Sardine, the hide and seek game, Sardines. Sardines is where like one person hides, and when someone else finds them, they hide with that person. So you need to find a hiding spot that can accommodate a lot of people. And we someone found a really, really good spot for this, and it took us a long time. I think I was searching for like an hour before I found them. Um, yeah, fond memories of playing that. Looking forward to getting back to that world. Maybe not crawling around caves, but the world of hanging out inside with people in the future, near future, hopefully. Alex clarified a previous question that was a misspelling. Let me understand it. Alex is talking about Diced. Dized is an app-based learning game. Is app-based learning for games. And yes, thank you, Alex, for clarifying that. I'm definitely familiar with Diced, but I had not heard of Dized with the I. Should have just recognized the misspelling. Yeah, totally. Darren says, what advice can you give to me to convince my girlfriend to try outside? We love Wingspan and Viticulture, but she thinks the game looks dark. Um, Overall advice, I wouldn't necessarily try to convince anyone to do anything they don't want to do. Maybe find something that they are excited about and do that with them, especially a girlfriend, a loved one. However, if I think it is worth maybe clarifying a misconception. I don't think Scythe is a particularly dark game. And one way that you might show her that is to put all the encounter cards on the table and show her what's happening on those cards. They really aren't dark. That there isn't really, even if she's associating with combat with darkness. It is not a grim game. It is a post-war game, but yeah, I would call it almost somewhat jovial and lighthearted in terms of some of the illustrations, some of the things happening in those illustrations. So yeah, I would show her the art on the encounter cards, maybe the objective cards too, so she can see whether or not the game is actually dark, and then let her pick the next game, whether or not it's Scythe or another game. Richard says, let me see, I'll do Rich. Yeah, I'm seeing if I have any other questions that I need to talk about real quick. Actually, I do have one other topic. I'll do this after Richard's question here. He says, have you ever considered using Prezi video in your videos? I think it would cut your editing time down a lot and would make showing basic images easier for you to show. Richard, that is, I hope Joe is listening now, or if not, I will mention that to Joe. Joe is the one who edits my Sunday videos, my long form Sunday videos. I do not do that, but I think Joe has gotten pretty comfortable with whatever editing software he uses. I don't edit anything, but he might be welcome the recommendation as well. And actually, you saying that reminded me that I usually mention the recent videos that I've done. Last week, this past Sunday, I talked about games that use player mats. That have upgrades. So when you put something on the mat, you might be upgrading something, your ability to do stuff in the game, your engine, your income, or if you remove stuff from the mat, like in Scythe or Terra Mystica, that you might be gaining better benefits, lower costs, things like that over the course of the game. So it was a tough topic to encapsulate into a title, but that is what I meant by player mat upgrades, in case you saw the image for my Sunday video this past week. Yeah, and then last Thursday, I did a guest post with some advice from me as well from Joe Slack about jobs and careers in the tabletop game industry, in case that's a topic that you're interested in if you're trying to get a job in the tabletop game industry. The other topic I was going to mention that I looked at on my little list here is the other thing that I mentioned in the newsletter is. Oh, actually, I did a couple things. In the newsletter, I'd recommend checking it out. I don't need to read it out loud here, but I did a full kind of reprint, restock estimate list of all the games that have been out of stock on our web store for a little while when we anticipate getting them back into stock. That's on the web store. But the topic that I wanted to cover briefly is that we've decided to formally institute a price guarantee policy on our web store. So in the past, whenever I announce a sale, so say you got an email from me saying, this week, Wingspan is on sale, for if you use this promo code, you'll save 10% on Wingspan. And I always try to include in those emails. I say, okay, if you just bought Wingspan recently at a higher price, let me know, because I don't want you to regret having bought it a few days ago and now you find out that there's a better price on it. We decided to formalize that with a 20-day price guarantee. This actually came from a conversation I had with my father when I was in Virginia about another company called Best Buy that has a 15-day price policy. I decided to go for 20 days because 20 days sounds better. So 20-day price guarantee, where if you buy something on our web store, on the Stonemaier Games web store, and then within 20 days you see us list a better sale price on the web store, you can contact us and let us know the price you paid versus the price that we're now listing, whether it's a listed price or a promo price that you find out about for that specific product, and we'll refund the difference. Because I don't want you to have regretted buying something recently and having paid a higher price. I did pick 20 days. I think 20 days is a fairly good amount of time. It's not all that different from 19 or 21. I think it is a lot different from like 5 months, because if you bought a game 5 months ago from us, you've had hopefully 5 months of enjoyment, or at least the potential for enjoyment with that game, that I think can no longer be measured as clearly by a price reduction or a sale price or something like that later on. You might feel a twinge of regret of why didn't I wait 5 months, but hopefully you don't really think that too often. For me, I know that if I buy something and I steal a better price later, I don't know. I really even think about that because I've had the game. Like I got the game. I was guaranteed to get it. I bought it. I feel good about it. Hopefully I've played it. That type of thing. But anyway, we formalized a price guarantee. You can, if you buy something on our web store and within 20 days you see a better price for that product, just let us know and we'll refund the difference to you. Alex has a question for Megan. Which recipes did you use to convert Jamie to vegetarianism? You said veganism here. I'm not a vegan, but I'll say, how did you convert Jamie to vegetarian? It, I guess I can answer my side of that, which is well, actually, it was kind of both of us because Megan wasn't completely vegetarian. She was somewhat vegetarian, more pescatarian. She is still more pescatarian, and I occasionally eat fish too. But the final impetus for us was we watched a video, a Netflix movie. I forget the name of it now, but it's a Netflix movie or a documentary about professional athletes who have gone vegan or vegetarian, who have plant-based diets, and the impact it's had on their health, the positive impact it's had on their health. Because that was the final thing holding me back. I was like, okay, I know for many reasons it is better to do this, but I thought I might be weaker or less healthy if I went vegetarian. But that video showed me that I was wrong on many accounts. I know that's just one documentary, but it pulled from a lot of different sources. And I've been essentially vegetarian for, what, a year now? Maybe even longer? And yeah, a year and a half almost. And I am, I would say, almost objectively healthier than I was, considerably so than I was before that. And I still eat a lot of sweets. That's the thing. I have not made my entire diet healthy. I eat chocolate. I eat sweets. Um, I yeah, I eat dessert after almost every meal except for breakfast. But but I also I don't know, the vegetarian aspect of it has really really helped. And I still eat lots of delicious food that's vegetarian. So I don't know. That's much bigger than the question you asked. We'll see what Megan says about that. Um, some people are saying some nice things to Alex here. I just want to. Alex has probably seen the comments, but Alex from Board Game Co., a wonderful YouTube channel that dives deep into Kickstarter, um, is joining us in the comments today, as he has in a few weekly posts. I just wanted to acknowledge that people are saying that they really enjoy Alex's channel, which is wonderful. Tim says, I find it. So, Tim is actually, I'm talking about digital games here. Tim is the digital developer of the Red Rising scoring app, and he's working on the full AI app for Tapestry. Tim says, I find it super interesting that you write down the questions on paper rather than copy paste on PC. You're right. I should totally do that. It's much faster than writing down on paper. But yeah, I do use pencil and paper for these little notes. He says, I guess you're more of an analog person. Do you generally have to-do lists digitally or on paper? I use sticky notes for my daily to-do list, but my long-term like project management to-do lists are digital. They're either web apps or they're on Excel. Yeah. Let's see. Hendrik says Hendrik's asking a question about the topic of the day, or Between Two Castles expansion. He says, with the extra room types, did sleeping rooms get a major rebalance? Um, no, we didn't change any rules from the core game. they are still the same. Let me check to see. But sleeping rooms still refer to specific other rooms. Let me see if there's a mention in the rules about sleeping rooms specifically. Because sleeping rooms want to have a variety of other. Oh, here we go. There is a rule change for sleeping rooms. So sleeping rooms score 4 points if your castle has any 6 other room types by the end of the game. It must have at least 6 out of the 7 types. Activity, corridor, downstairs, food, living, outdoor, and utility, not including sleeping itself. Important. Specialty rooms, secret rooms, and sleeping rooms do not count towards the 6 other room types to score points for the sleeping rooms. And you'll see this when I talk about more about why secret was excluded. It is not something that will be difficult to remember. But basically, secret rooms in this expansion copy other rooms. They copy other rooms. So they aren't even really a room type of their own because they immediately, as soon as you place them, become another room in the castle. Marco says, do I know if Forland will release a German version of the Between Two Castles Magic and Ludwig expansion, which I believe is just called Between Two Castles in Germany, because Ludwig was a German king that not all see as mad, especially in Germany. Marco, I believe so, but I don't ever want to speak for a localization partner if they are not ready to announce such news. So feel free to ask Forland about that. Tim says, did I do anything for May the 4th? For Star Wars Day yesterday? I wore Baby Yoda MeUndies, basically, was my contribution. And actually, I was inspired by that a little bit. I don't know if any of you are curious about underwear, but I love the brand MeUndies. They're fun, they're very comfortable, and they're actually fairly affordable. I love the brand. I actually contacted them yesterday as I was thinking about this, about what I was wearing, and I asked them if they would ever be interested in partnering with Stonemaier Games to bring a board game themed MeUndies to their website. They deal with much bigger brands, much bigger IPs like Star Wars, Back to the Future, things like that, Marvel. But I threw it out there because why not? It would be awesome to see a modern board games on a pair of MeUndies underwear. So we'll see if it happens. Their normal customer service person replied to me, and she said she passed it on to the people who make those types of decisions. Samuel says, do you have pictures of your games art hanging at home? He says there's one from Scythe on your Sunday sit down videos. So that was my old background, my old condo. I do have both of those Scythe pictures around the corner here. You can't see them on camera here. But yes, I do have 2 of them, and I do have some Wingspan art on the walls as well. Dylan is asking for teasers for another expansion, but obviously today the focus is on Between Two Castles. Tim says, thoughts on the modular Isle of Cats expansion goes to Kickstarter later this month. I actually don't know anything about it. I love Isle of Cats. I will probably get the expansion, although even out of the core game box is so much variability that I'll be curious about it. He also says, also hoping that Walter and Biddy somehow find their way into Catastrophe, a game of 9 lives that's on Kickstarter now. And while we're on cat news, you can see Biddy sleeping back there. He's been sleeping back there on the chair this whole time. Biddy has an infection right now on his tail. And I am immediately after this video, or soon after this video, I have an appointment this afternoon. I will be taking him to the vet to inspect this infection. Hopefully it'll just need like a little draining and some antibiotics. But if you're a cat lover, give Biddy a little paw pump today, because he has a high pain tolerance, but I don't think he's feeling great right now, and he hates going to the vet. But the vet couldn't come to us today, so I need to take him out to the vet. So really, that'll be the worst part of it. I think everything that happens at the vet will be fine, but the anxiety of getting him into the cage and him being in the car and going to this unknown place really makes his heart rate go up. But hopefully he'll be okay, poor guy. Ash asked for news on the Wingspan Big Box, which we talked a little bit about earlier in this live cast. You might be able to flip back and see some of the information about it. But I still don't have the prototype. I still don't have the revised prototype. Panda is trying to get me a pretty robust version of the revised prototype. They said I will have it in mid-May. So either next week or the next week, probably 2 weeks from now, I will have the next prototype to show off. Justin says, in terms of Stonemaier Games, what is the thing you've achieved that you're most proud of? Do you have any other long-term goals for Stonemaier Games in general that you want to achieve? We don't we plan for the long term, or plan for at least like the next 2 to 3 years, but I wouldn't say any goals in that way. Um, the thing that I think of when I think of what I'm the most proud of is when we took the step to publish games that weren't designed by me, and I guess later the step to design games that were co-designed by me and someone else. That felt really good. It felt like we were a real company then instead of just a vanity publisher. Hopefully, I would never publish anything on my own for my own vanity, like that term speaks to. I make games for you to bring joy to other people, but it felt good to bring in other designers to make that possible. So that's one thing I'm really proud of. Yeah. Courtney says, any available information on Rolling Realms, like the actual tabletop version of Rolling Realms, which will be the second Stonemaier Games new game released this year. Uh, and so Courtney has a very nice comment here. She says, that was really fun to be part of from the start of the pandemic and helped give a sense of community. And Courtney, I thank you so much for saying that. That was a lot of fun for me too to do around this time last year at the beginning of the pandemic when I started designing Rolling Realms. And I'm hoping to continue to do that with the final version of it, the final printed version of it. I don't have information about that yet to share, but I will in a few months. And I look forward to at that time when once it gets into people's hands that we can continue to play it remotely from time to time. There will be a Rolling Realms Facebook group for the game where we'll do some events like that where I'll just sit down and we'll play either a full game of all 9 realms or we'll play a three realm game, things like that. And yeah, I look forward to doing that in the future. Rafa says, "Do you ever get tired of playing board games and take breaks from playing?" I get tired of particular board games or sometimes certain types of games, but I have never, even throughout my entire life, I've never just not played tabletop games. I've never really done that. No, no. I understand that people do, and I think this is Mental Health Awareness Month, and so if anyone out there is feeling tired of games and it's impacting your psychology, your mental health, uh, I hope you feel the freedom to take a break, like Raphael says here, or Rafa says. There is it's okay, even it's okay to take a break from the things that you love, so that you can maybe renew that love or find other loves, other hobbies. Um, I don't know. I'm no one to give advice about this, but I think that's sometimes I think people need to hear that permission to take a break from things. Um, I even found it. I actually found it when I was originally designing Viticulture. Started in 2011, carried into 2012, and I got to a point where I was just kind of tired of it for a while, and every day felt like a drag. It didn't feel good to work on it, and so I took a break and I wrote a novel. And I just focused on writing a novel for a few months. Sometimes I forget that I did that in the middle of designing Viticulture. I put it aside completely and just spent all my creative energy writing a novel. And it was incredibly gratifying to do that, to complete this novel that I had been wanting to write for a long, long time. And then when I came back to Viticulture afterwards, my passion for it was completely renewed. It felt great to return to it and to start planning that Kickstarter project back in 2012. I don't know. That's just my experience, but it reminded me that it's healthy and good to take a break from things, even the things that we love sometimes. George has a question for Megan. He says, "Name one thing about Jamie which he doesn't know you like. One thing you like about Jamie which he doesn't know you like until now." I like Megan saying things that she likes about me, so I'll definitely write that down. Um, Thing that you like about Jamie that he doesn't know. Let's see. Tim says he's trying to convince some members of his family that Sleeping Gods is a worthy purchase. He just went to retail today. Oh, that's exciting. Um, and yeah, Tim, I really enjoyed my experience with Sleeping Gods. I would recommend it, but as long as you know exactly what you're getting into. It's a campaign game, very open world, very quest driven, um, and some really interesting combat mechanisms in it. I don't usually gravitate towards combat, and there isn't a lot of combat in the game, but the combat was a lot of fun whenever we got to it. Chris has a question about adventure games, which Laura has mentioned to me earlier. Specifically, Monochrome Inc. is the one that Laura has recommended. I have not played the adventure games yet, but someone else who watches these videos, Laura, recommended them, and I have one on my wish list to try in the near future. And uh, he says, I know you're a huge fan of time stories, which I am, but my group preferred the adventure games over time stories because we felt far less constrained with multiple endings with the adventure games. That's interesting. I'm definitely intrigued by that. Carol is joining us here today. She says, did you see that Brandon Sanderson said he wanted to make a Stormlight Archive board game? And he put out a survey to get fans' opinion on what weight style of game they would want. Can we get you to contact him? Funny enough, I subscribe to Brandon Sanderson. He's an famous author, Brandon Sanderson's blog in my Feedly feed, and I got that just yesterday, and I actually filled out the form too. I requested a medium weight game was my preference. He had a little poll that you could fill out if you are interested in a Stormlight Archive board game. I don't think I'm the person or the company to publish a Stormlight Archive game, but I appreciate you saying that, Carol, and I do love it, and I will play it and buy it whenever someone does it justice. And I'm curious to see the results of that poll. Very curious. Mark says, can you share a link to that survey? If you go to Brandon Sanderson's website, I think it's brandonsanderson.com, you should be able to see it there. Heather says, do you all have plans for turning more of your games into versions for the upcoming tabletop younger generation, like Scythe made into a family game, My Little Scythe? She says, I know for us, Charterstone is one of our favorites, and it would be fun for something like that to introduce legacy-style type games to kids. I have heard that Zombie Kids, very different style game, but I heard that Zombie Kids is a fun legacy game for kids. We don't have any like conversions of our games to the like side to My Little Scythe. We don't have any of that in the works right now. I'm trying to think of any of the games. So not right now. If there's a good fit in the future, we will pursue it. That was a special case. I think Wingspan is a big enough of a brand that we might consider doing that someday for a Wingspan spinoff that's a little bit geared towards those who are a little bit younger. But I think one of the assets of Wingspan is that every card is a little different, and so the text is a big thing. Text on cards is a big thing on Wingspan. So oftentimes when I think about simplifying a game, I think about putting in less text, and that might detract from the quality of a Wingspan style game. But who knows? There might be a way to do it. Nathaniel has a question about another expansion as well, but today we're focusing on the Between Two Castles expansion. Today is the announcement for that. Froylan says, any plans to make a new game trays insert to fit the expansion into the base box? Actually, Froylan, as you can see in the description of the game, I mentioned this a few times, I say, here's the description on the e-newsletter of the Between Two Castles expansion. Thanks to the game's special game trays, everything fits into the original game box. So this expansion actually comes with a game trays that fits all the expansion components, and that tray fits into the original game box for Between Two Castles. So any plans to do it? Yes, we did that about 8 months ago when we were thinking about how to fit everything together. Maybe even before that. So plans in the past, yeah. Tim says, have I considered making Stonemaier face masks? I have not. I do know that Wingspan artists Natalia and Anna do offer Wingspan art face masks that you can get, I think, on their website. Actually, I don't know 100% if they offer that yet, but they did send me one. Let's see if I have one here. Here's one. Here's the little blue pigeon face mask here. You can see the little blue pigeon there. That's pretty adorable. So they make some of those face masks. All right, I'm just about out of time today, so let me see real quick if there are any questions. Jennifer says, will the newest expansion include a solo mode, and would I need the first expansion? For the first expansion. Oh, Jennifer, you might be confusing. So this is an expansion of Between Two Castles, and it does include a solo mode. For Castles of Magic and Ludwig, that is a different game from a different company. They're related. We do have a related intellectual property, but the games are completely different. So I don't know about the expansions for that. I think they play solo, but I don't know. But there's only one expansion for Between Two Castles, and that is this one that we just announced, and it does include solo mode. It's also playable two-player. Let's see, William has a question here. He says, I haven't tried the original Castle of Magic and Ludwig or our Between Two Castles game. Would playing the original first help in playing Between Two Castles, or are they significantly different? They're pretty different. They do. I mean, they have some similarities, but in terms of gameplay or learning the game, they are very independent games. You can choose whichever one is the right fit for you. I love Castles of Magic and Ludwig. I also love Between Two Castles. So you might look at both of them and just see which one you're more interested in. Jenny says, "Did I publish my novel?" I did not. No. It's hinted at actually in Euphoria. There's an artifact card that has the name of the book. It's called Wrinkle. Not Wrinkle in Time, as I think some people think when they see that word, but the book is called Wrinkle. I have not published it. It's possible I'll publish it someday, but for now, all of my creative energy is spent on tabletop games. Tim says, "What's my favorite?" Here's a question for Megan. What is her favorite Stonemaier game? We'll see what her current answer to that is. Heather has a very complimentary question here, complimentary post about that we have solo games and that we have Facebook groups for each of our games. I won't read the whole comment because it's a little long, but Heather, I've read it, and thank you for saying that. We'll keep doing that for sure. But yeah, we do try to stay focused on community here at some of our games. So that's a wrap for today. I will throw this up on YouTube. So if you have any follow-up questions for me or follow-up questions for Megan that she can answer in a future livecast if she chooses to join us, feel free to do that on the YouTube version of this video. And I'm going to have a quick lunch and then take Biddy to the vet to take care of his little infection. Poor little guy back there, still sleeping away. Have a great Wednesday. I look forward to sharing more information with you about the Between Two Castles expansion. Go join the Between Two Castles Facebook group if you want to learn more, and stay tuned to those updates. It'll also be on our website and on Board Game Geek. And I'll see you next week. Take care. Have a great day.